Beneath a small village named Neuss, just outside Erfurt in Germany, an extraordinary find has recently been unearthed. This discovery challenges everything we thought we knew about one of the most devastating pandemics in history, the Black Death. An interdisciplinary research team led by Leipzig University has identified what is believed to be Europe's first systematically proven plague mass burial site. The study, published in the peer-reviewed journal PLOS1, reveals that during the height of the Black Death, those who succumbed to the plague were hastily buried together in large pits. This discovery represents a missing chapter of medieval Europe's deadliest pandemic, offering unique insights into the desperate measures taken to manage the overwhelming number of deaths. Before 1348, the term Black Death had not even been used in English. From 1342 to 1352, Europe was consumed by a deadly plague that left 1/3 to 1/2 of the population dead. As cemeteries and churches became overwhelmed, traditional ways of burying the dead had to be abandoned. Death was no longer celebrated as a community event with friends and family. Instead, it became a hurried affair, handled by those who could barely keep up with the relentless wave of fatalities. This mass grave discovery near Neuss is not an isolated incident. A similar site found in Nuremberg may be the largest plague victim burial ever discovered in Europe. Estimates suggest there could be as many as 500 or even more interred at this site, offering a grim testimony to the scale of the calamity. As we delve deeper into this chilling find, we begin to understand the true extent of medieval Europe's despair and the drastic measures taken in the face of an unimaginable catastrophe. By the end of tonight's journey, you will understand how this mass grave reveals a story of desperate survival and the profound changes that swept through medieval society. Before we begin, a small request. Most of the people listening tonight aren't subscribed. If this channel has ever helped you drift off, take a moment to subscribe. It's free, it helps this channel more than you'd think, and you can always change your mind later. And if you feel like it, leave a comment telling me where in the world you're listening from and what time it is where you are. I love reading them. One more thing before we begin. I'm also a co-founder of a sleep app built to be the most affordable one out there. No ads, ever. Just sounds and stories made to help you sleep. It may not be released yet as this video goes up, but if you're watching a little later, it might be out by now. Just search for it. It should be easy to find. It works on iPhone, Android, and everything in between. Downloading it is the best way to support this channel. Medieval records paint a grim picture of the devastating Black Death that swept through Europe during the 14th century. These accounts speak of entire families and villages wiped out by this invisible foe. Bodies littered the streets as the death toll climbed rapidly. The Black Death was so devastating that it even disrupted the prevailing feudal system in Europe. Historians suggest that this plague marked the beginning of the end for feudalism. Imagine the desperation, bodies piled up, awaiting burial, while survivors struggled to make sense of it all. The sheer volume of corpses overwhelmed existing burial practices, forcing hurried measures to contain the spread of disease. Rushed individual burials became common, with multiple members of a family sometimes interred together if they succumbed close in time. But even these measures could not keep pace with the relentless toll of the plague. Mass graves, like those unearthed in Nuremberg, became a grim necessity. The discovery in Nuremberg underscores the desperate measures taken during this time of crisis. It is a stark reminder of how medieval burial practices were challenged and reshaped by the Black Death. As we delve deeper into these ancient sites, we gain a sobering glimpse into the desperation that gripped medieval societies facing an unimaginable catastrophe. But even amidst this despair, there are stories of resilience and adaptation, tales of how communities tried to maintain some semblance of order in the face of overwhelming adversity. And as we continue to uncover these long-lost chapters, we come to appreciate the complexity and resilience of our past, a past that shapes our present and future. The discovery of mass graves from the Black Death offers more than just a glimpse into the past. They unveil how medieval communities adapted their funerary practices in response to an unprecedented crisis. Before the Black Death, burial rituals were deeply rooted in community and religious traditions. But as disease spread rapidly across Europe, these practices began to shift, reflecting both fear and necessity. Research aims to distinguish these funerary changes from standard rituals of the time, revealing them as distinct practices born out of desperation. The plague was believed to result from imbalances in bodily humors, leading communities to seek ways to contain and isolate the diseased bodies quickly and efficiently. This marked a significant departure from the traditional view of death as a sacred rite, underscoring the profound impact the Black Death had on medieval society's fabric and collective psyche. As we continue to uncover these mass graves, we begin to illuminate the specific adaptations made during this pandemic, shedding light on the resilience and ingenuity of our past in the face of devastating adversity. The archaeological insights into medieval burial practices are particularly illuminating when we uncover mass graves, such as those discovered in Nuremberg, Germany. These sites reveal a critical aspect of how societies dealt with the devastating impacts of pandemics like the Black Death. In the Franconian region of Bavaria lies a significant site where more than 1,000 individuals have been found buried in mass graves. This area holds immense cultural and historical value. Radiocarbon dating and historical documents provide crucial clues that suggest these graves were created around the first half of the 17th century. A note from 1634 details a plague outbreak in the early 17th century, offering further evidence that these graves are linked to this period of history. The precise dating of these mass graves allows us to understand the societal responses during a time of great turmoil and loss. These archaeological finds are invaluable in shedding light on the resilience and adaptations of medieval societies facing catastrophic events like pandemics. By exploring these mass graves, we gain a deeper appreciation for the innovative strategies employed to manage overwhelming numbers of deceased during such crises. Ultimately, these discoveries offer a window into the human story, how communities cope with unimaginable loss and seek to maintain order amidst chaos. And in doing so, they underscore the importance of archaeological evidence in piecing together the narrative of our past and understanding the complexities of human history. As the team uncovered these interments, they realized that this mass grave was not just a local phenomenon, but part of a much larger historical context. The Black Death, also known as the bubonic plague, swept through Europe in the late Middle Ages between 1346 and 1351. Originating in China and Central Asia, this devastating disease spread along trade routes like the Silk Road, carried by fleas on rats that thrived among merchants and soldiers traveling across the continent. The rapid transmission of the Black Death was facilitated by these well-trodden paths, which connected distant lands and cultures. Trade cities like Messina in Italy played a pivotal role, serving as hubs where goods and people from various regions converged. As rats and their flea companions moved along these routes, they carried Yersinia pestis, the bacterium responsible for the Black Death. This pathogen spread rapidly among human populations, causing symptoms such as swollen lymph nodes and turning skin black, earning the disease its name, Black Death. This historical context paints a grim picture of how the Black Death could have reached Messina and other major port cities. Merchants, travelers, and armies unknowingly carried infected fleas, spreading the disease as they moved from one location to another. The discovery of mass graves in cities like Messina offers a stark reminder of how swiftly and brutally the Black Death could strike. As traditional burial practices became overwhelmed, communities resorted to mass interments as a grim necessity. This shift in burial practices is not just about logistics. It speaks volumes about the societal reactions to the Black Death. The sheer scale of death and the rapidity with which it occurred challenged traditional bonds and authority within medieval European communities. In this historical context, the mass grave in Messina becomes more than just a site of burial. It's a testament to the devastating impact of the Black Death on medieval society. The uncovering of these burial sites continues to reveal new insights into medieval life and death, placing us in the shoes of those who faced an unprecedented challenge with resilience and determination. And perhaps most importantly, it reminds us of our shared humanity across time, of the common struggles and triumphs that bind us all together. In the face of such overwhelming loss, it's natural to ask, how did medieval society adapt to the Black Death? The labor shortages induced by the plague forced a reorganization of labor and economic production. Before the Black Death, feudalism had dominated Europe's economy and society. But the plague's devastating labor shortages meant that there weren't enough workers to tend the land or perform traditional tasks. This scarcity of labor induced significant changes in how work was done and who did it. New roles emerged as society sought to adapt to the reality of a decimated workforce. For instance, the Black Death saw significant social mobility. Peasants who had previously been tied to the land through feudal contracts now found opportunities elsewhere. This shift in labor dynamics led to the decline of feudalism in Europe. The economic impact was also profound. The redistribution of wealth meant that some landowners found themselves with more resources than they knew what to do with. Meanwhile, workers who had survived the plague could command higher wages due to their scarcity. Art and culture were not spared from these societal changes. Themes in medieval art began to reflect the new realities of life after the Black Death. Images of death and transience became more common, mirroring the collective trauma of the population. Treatment aimed at restoring this equilibrium often involved methods such as bloodletting and the use of specific herbs. However, these approaches were largely ineffective against the Black Death, leading to a shift in medical thinking. The mass graves discovered in cities like Nuremberg and Neuss provide a stark glimpse into these societal reactions. They reflect not only the overwhelming death toll, but also the desperate measures taken to manage it. Perhaps most poignantly, these graves serve as a reminder of the collective grief and fear that gripped medieval society in the face of an invisible foe. They are not just piles of bones, but testaments to human resilience and adaptation in the face of catastrophe. Beneath the soil of medieval Europe, secrets lie buried. The 8 plague pits unearthed in Franconia, Bavaria, speak volumes about a time when death loomed large. They hold more than 1,000 individuals, each a silent witness to the Black Death's devastating sweep. The discovery of these mass graves is part of an ongoing legacy of discovery, shedding light on medieval burial practices and societal reactions to the plague. Excavations reveal that fleas from rats transmitted the disease, a grim testament to the relentless spread of the plague. More than 500 individuals' remains have been unearthed so far, each offering a glimpse into the collective grief and fear that gripped medieval society. As archaeologists continue their work, there is potential for new discoveries and deeper insights into the pandemic's impact. The ongoing excavations may unveil more about the medieval society's response to the plague, revealing their resilience and adaptability. This legacy of discovery underscores the enduring relevance of these graves in understanding human history and the complexities of pandemics. As we continue to explore these sites, we honor the lives lost and gain insight into our own capacity for resilience and adaptation. When the Black Death swept across medieval Europe, its impact was felt not only in the lives it took, but also in how communities had to handle their deceased members. One of the starkest responses is seen through the use of mass graves. Community leaders stepped in to organize collective burials, often with the help of churches. These mass graves allowed for the quick disposal of many bodies at once, minimizing the risk of infection spreading. But it wasn't just about practicality. These collective burials also served as a way for communities to grieve together. In a time when death was ever present, such rituals offered a measure of solace and a sense of shared loss. Churches played a pivotal role in managing these mass graves. They became places where collective mourning rituals could be held, allowing communities to come together and pay their respects. These collective burials provided a means for people to honor the lives lost, while also attempting to maintain some semblance of normalcy in an otherwise chaotic time. Beyond practical and spiritual considerations, mass graves offered insights into medieval beliefs about death and the afterlife. They reflect a society grappling with unprecedented loss and trying to find meaning amidst it all. As we continue to study these sites, they reveal not only the grim reality of the Black Death, but also the resilience and adaptability of medieval communities in the face of such catastrophic events. Understanding how these communities responded to the plague offers us a window into our own capacity for resilience and adaptation, even in the darkest of times. The discovery of mass graves during the Black Death has provided valuable insights into medieval culture and societal reactions to this devastating pandemic. Artifacts found within these graves offer a glimpse into the everyday lives and social status of those who perished. Among the most revealing finds are pieces of jewelry and clothing that adorn the bodies of the deceased. These personal items provide a tangible link to the lives of those who succumbed to the plague. Jewelry, in particular, offers insights into the social status and economic circumstances of individuals buried in these mass graves. Ornate pieces might indicate wealth or higher social standing, while simpler adornments could suggest a more modest background. Clothing artifacts similarly reveal aspects of daily life and social hierarchy. The quality and style of garments found in these graves can help historians understand the economic and social divisions within medieval communities. Personal items such as combs, mirrors, and coins also provide a window into the personal routines and grooming practices of those who lived during this turbulent time. These artifacts not only serve as historical evidence, but also humanize the individuals buried in these mass graves. They remind us that each body was once a living person with their own unique story and experiences. By examining the artifacts found in these burial sites, we gain a deeper appreciation for the personal narratives behind the mass graves. They illustrate how ordinary people coped with the extraordinary challenges posed by the Black Death. These discoveries underscore the resilience and adaptability of medieval communities in the face of such a catastrophic event. They offer a poignant reminder of our shared human capacity for endurance and perseverance. As the Black Death swept across medieval Europe, it left communities grappling with an unprecedented challenge: how to dispose of the vast number of bodies. The sheer scale of death overwhelmed traditional funeral customs and forced the evolution of burial practices. Historical records and archaeological findings provide insights into how funerary rituals adapted to the crisis. For instance, the discovery of mass graves in cities like Nuremberg and London reveals that individual burials became impractical due to the sheer volume of dead. In response, communities resorted to communal burial pits where bodies were laid side by side in layers. These mass graves, while efficient, marked a significant departure from traditional funerary practices that emphasized individual attention and respect for the deceased. Religious ceremonies also had to be modified. With priests themselves falling ill and dying, the performance of last rites became sporadic. In some cases, bodies were buried without the benefit of religious services, reflecting the strain on ecclesiastical resources. Moreover, secular rituals that once accompanied death were often forsaken in favor of swift and efficient disposal. The impact of the Black Death on traditional funeral ceremonies was profound, illustrating how extreme circumstances can reshape cultural practices. They offer a glimpse into how even the most deeply rooted customs can be reimagined when faced with extraordinary challenges. As we've seen, mass graves are not an uncommon sight during times of widespread crisis like the Black Death. But what do these grim discoveries tell us about the spread and progression of such a devastating epidemic? To understand this, let's delve into the patterns in death rates, clustering of graves, and the distribution of victims across different strata of society. Patterns in death rates suggest that the plague did not affect all segments of society equally. While richer individuals might have had access to better health care and living conditions, they were still at risk. However, the lower classes, who often lived in cramped conditions with poor hygiene, suffered disproportionately high mortality rates. This disparity is reflected in the mass graves themselves. The epidemiological insights gained from these graves provide a clearer picture of how the plague swept through medieval populations. They reveal a story not just of death, but also of resilience and adaptation in the face of extraordinary challenges. Each grave is a testament to both the devastating reach of the Black Death and the desperate measures taken by those who survived it. These findings underscore the profound impact that epidemics have on social structures and behaviors. As we've seen, even deeply rooted customs can be reimagined when faced with such unprecedented crises. And this is just one of many sites that have been discovered across Europe, each contributing to our growing understanding of how the Black Death reshaped medieval life. As we continue to uncover and study these mass graves, we gain a deeper appreciation for both the hardships endured by our ancestors and their remarkable capacity for adaptation. This chapter closes with a softening reminder that beneath every statistic and historical account lie individual stories of struggle, hope, and perseverance, a humbling legacy passed down through time. Standard burial practices were quickly overwhelmed by the sheer volume of corpses. Traditional cemeteries and churches could no longer accommodate the rapid influx of deceased. The need for immediate solutions led to the repurposing of existing sites, including mass graves and even the reuse of older burial plots. The discovery sheds light on the desperate measures undertaken to manage the overwhelming death toll. These mass graves were a last resort, reflecting the sheer magnitude of the crisis. Burial spaces that were once reserved for individual interments now had to be repurposed to accommodate multiple bodies at a time. The pressure on these spaces reveals the sheer intensity of the plague's impact, forcing communities to adapt drastically in their burial practices. For instance, individual graves were sometimes stacked with multiple bodies, a stark deviation from the traditional norms of respectful and spaced interments. This desperate need for burial solutions highlights the urgent challenges faced by overwhelmed communities during the Black Death. In some cases, victims of varying social statuses were buried together in mass graves, suggesting that the sheer volume of deaths overwhelmed traditional funeral practices. This could indicate a desperate attempt to maintain order amid chaos. However, other sites show a stark contrast. Remains from distinct social classes were buried separately, adhering to pre-pandemic customs. This suggests that, even amidst the chaos, societal norms around status and hierarchy persisted. For example, in Nuremberg, Germany, an excavated site revealed over 1,000 skeletons from the Black Death era. Archaeologists found that while some graves contained multiple individuals, others were markedly distinct in their contents. This variance indicates a struggle between maintaining societal order and coping with the overwhelming death toll. It highlights an attempt to preserve social hierarchy even in the face of unprecedented mortality. The implications are profound. Despite the devastating toll, medieval societies made concerted efforts to uphold traditional norms, even if it meant burying people in ways that would have been unthinkable under normal circumstances. These practices underscore the resilience of societal structures and the deep-seated importance placed on maintaining social order, even in the darkest hours of a plague that would forever alter Europe's landscape. The discovery and analysis of these mass graves serve as a testament to the human effort to find order in chaos, revealing how deeply ingrained social structures were, even amidst catastrophic loss. In the face of mass mortality, traditional funerary practices often gave way to necessity. mass graves became a common sight. Bodies were laid out in rows, often without the individual rites or ceremonies that would typically accompany death. Yet, even amidst this chaos, there were instances where traditional practices persisted. In some towns, priests continued to conduct individual blessings for the deceased. These clerics, despite the risk of infection, believed it was their sacred duty to offer spiritual comfort to those passing. In other cases, communities found creative ways to maintain a semblance of traditional rites. For example, the bodies of plague victims might be laid out in rows with small tokens or personal effects placed alongside them. These items served as a tangible connection to the person's life and beliefs. Such adaptations show how deeply religious rituals were embedded in the fabric of medieval society. Despite the overwhelming toll of the Black Death, these practices illustrate a resilient human desire to honor the dead with dignity. And as we continue to explore these discoveries, they offer a poignant reminder of how religious responses evolved under the immense pressure of this historic pandemic. In the wake of the Black Death, communities across Europe sought ways to honor and remember their lost loved ones. These discoveries shed light on how medieval communities handled the overwhelming loss and disruption caused by the pandemic. In response to these tragic findings, local authorities in Nuremberg decided to commemorate the site as a community memorial. The memorial, known as the Pestfriedhof or Plague Cemetery, serves as a poignant reminder of the lives lost and the resilience of the community. In other parts of Europe, similar community memorials emerged to pay tribute to those who perished during the Black Death. These memorials often featured inscriptions and symbols that signified both the tragic loss and the hope for future peace and stability. For instance, in Florence, Italy, a memorial plaque was erected to honor the victims of the Black Death, with words expressing the community's grief and determination to rebuild. Interestingly, many of these memorials were dedicated shortly after the end of the pandemic, indicating a desire to process loss collectively and mark a new beginning. The timing of these dedications underscores how communities needed time to grieve and understand the profound impact of the Black Death before they could begin to heal. Through these community memorials, medieval Europeans found a way to acknowledge their shared trauma and pay homage to the lives that were lost too soon. This act of remembrance served as a powerful reminder of resilience in the face of adversity and the enduring bonds that hold communities together. When the Black Death swept through medieval Europe, entire communities were wiped out in a matter of days. With death tolls mounting and traditional burial practices overwhelmed, desperate measures were taken to contain the spread of the disease. One such measure was the use of isolation chambers, known as lazarettos. These chambers were designed to quarantine the sick and prevent further contamination. Historical records show that these lazarettos were often hastily constructed and overcrowded. Yet, despite their imperfections, they served as a last resort to protect the living from the ravages of the plague. The impact of these isolation chambers on burial practices was significant. The sheer volume of deaths necessitated quick and efficient disposal methods to prevent the spread of disease further. Historical accounts also reveal that some communities resorted to communal pits for mass burials. The use of these pits was not merely a practical solution, but also reflected the collective trauma and desperation of the time. Quarantine practices, although often rudimentary by modern standards, did influence local communities' reactions to the disease. They served as a stark reminder of the fragility of life and the importance of protecting the living at any cost. Historical records also suggest that these measures had varying degrees of success in containing the spread. For instance, some towns that implemented strict quarantine measures fared better than those that did not. However, the Black Death's relentless nature often meant that even the most rigorous efforts were insufficient to stop its spread. Understanding these quarantine measures helps us appreciate the immense challenges faced by medieval societies in their battle against one of history's deadliest pandemics. And as we delve deeper into this period, we gain a profound sense of the resilience and adaptability of human communities in the face of catastrophic adversity. The Black Death reshaped not just the lives of medieval people, but also the very landscapes where they laid their dead to rest. Cemeteries and burial grounds, once places of solemn ritual and communal gathering, became overrun with bodies piling up in mass graves, reflecting the sheer scale of loss and desperation. But it wasn't just existing cemeteries that were transformed. New burial grounds were also created in response to the sheer number of deaths. These newly established grave sites often displayed different spatial organizations and symbolism, reflecting societal attempts to make sense of the catastrophic events unfolding around them. For instance, the layout and organization of these new grave sites often diverged from traditional patterns. Bodies were frequently placed in close proximity to one another, sometimes even stacked, as a grim necessity due to the overwhelming number of deceased. As we examine these altered landscapes, it becomes evident that the physical reshaping of medieval cemeteries wasn't just a practical response to mass deaths. It was also a reflection of societal responses and coping mechanisms in the face of unimaginable loss. Today, these mass graves offer valuable insights into how medieval communities navigated one of history's darkest periods. They stand as a silent testament to the resilience and adaptability of human societies in the face of catastrophic adversity. And as we continue our exploration, we gain a deeper understanding not only of the Black Death's horrifying impact, but also of the human capacity to persevere and adapt in even the most challenging of circumstances. Religious rituals adapted to cope with the unprecedented scale of death. In some cases, mass graves were blessed and consecrated en masse. Clerics performed abbreviated services for individual burials within the mass graves. Theological interpretations of the plague varied. Some viewed it as divine punishment for sin. Others saw it as a trial by God to test and strengthen faith. Changes in clerical practices reflected the urgent need for spiritual guidance during the crisis. Increased devotion and new religious practices emerged as people sought solace, illuminating how religious beliefs and practices adapted to cope with the overwhelming number of deaths from the Black Death. Despite the devastation, societies found ways to preserve their spiritual and communal fabric. Understanding these adaptations offers insight into how medieval societies grappled with immense loss and change. The sheer volume of deceased required expedient and cost-effective solutions, as individual rituals and traditional cemetery spaces proved insufficient. Labor shortages exacerbated by the plague further compounded this issue, making it challenging to adhere to standard funeral rites. The economic implications of mass graves were profound for surviving communities. These communities faced the dual burden of managing the disposal of an unprecedented number of bodies while also dealing with the loss of workers needed to perform these tasks. The financial burden alone was immense. The economic pressures forced a shift in societal norms and practices, altering how medieval societies approached death and burial rituals during this catastrophic period. For many, the traditional celebrations of life after death were replaced with more practical considerations, highlighting how economic strain reshaped medieval responses to loss. The discovery and study of mass graves offer valuable insights into the societal reactions to the Black Death and the immense challenges faced by communities during this tumultuous time. These findings underscore how economic constraints compelled medieval societies to adapt their burial practices, shedding light on the broader impact of the plague on social and cultural norms. During the Black Death, burial practices shifted significantly from traditional funerary rites. Medieval societies, faced with an unprecedented number of deaths, turned to mass graves as a necessity to manage the sheer volume of corpses. The discovery of mass grave sites near Neuss, just outside Erfurt, offers valuable insights into these changes. As the plague swept through Europe, it became clear that traditional methods were no longer sustainable. Personal items, once common in individual graves, began to disappear from these mass interments. This shift suggests a practical response to the overwhelming number of bodies that needed to be buried. The absence of personal effects is not merely an omission, but indicates a pragmatic adjustment to the grim reality of a pandemic. Each grave represented a hasty necessity rather than a meticulously planned final resting place. Symbolically, mass graves reflect not just a change in burial rituals, but also a profound societal reaction to the plague. They are a stark reminder of the pandemic's devastating toll and the desperate measures taken to contain it. By studying these mass graves, historians can piece together a more comprehensive understanding of how medieval societies coped with the Black Death. Each grave serves as a testament to the turmoil and resilience of those times. The shift in burial rituals underscores the importance of community and collective response during times of crisis. Mass graves are not just places of rest, but also a poignant record of societal change under duress. These findings demonstrate how pandemics can profoundly alter cultural practices and rituals. In the face of the Black Death, traditional funeral rites gave way to more pragmatic methods, reflecting the urgent needs of a beleaguered society. The discovery and study of these mass graves continue to offer new insights into the medieval world's response to one of history's most devastating pandemics. They are a sobering reminder of the human cost and resilience during such catastrophic events. Understanding these changes in burial practices offers a window into the broader impact of the Black Death on medieval society. It highlights how communities adapted and coped with unprecedented loss, leaving behind a poignant historical record. For many, the sight of these mass graves must have been deeply unsettling. Picture a vast open field, once verdant and peaceful, now filled with row after row of hastily dug trenches. Each trench brimming with bodies, all awaiting their final rest. These mass graves tell a story not just of death, but also of how medieval societies coped with the overwhelming tragedy of the Black Death. They offer insights into the psychological impacts and communal responses during this dark time. Consider that a person in the 14th century could have seen their entire village wiped out within weeks. The streets once filled with laughter and commerce now echoed with the haunting silence of emptied homes. Fear must have been palpable, spreading like a contagion itself. People turned to desperate measures for protection, wearing protective garments or even isolating themselves from others in hopes of evading the plague. But what really stands out is the communal spirit that persisted amidst such turmoil. Neighbors would often risk their own safety to care for the sick and bury the dead, demonstrating a profound sense of duty and compassion. These mass graves serve as sobering reminders of the human capacity for both resilience and despair. They speak to the immense challenge faced by medieval societies in the face of unprecedented loss. And yet, amidst all this chaos, there was a sense of order being restored. As the plague began to recede, so too did the need for these mass graves. They became fewer and farther between, signaling that life was slowly returning to normal. In the end, these pits stand not just as testaments to death, but also as symbols of survival. They remind us of the indomitable spirit of medieval communities that persevered through one of history's darkest hours. In the face of unparalleled devastation, medieval communities found themselves pressed to improvise burial methods that prioritized both efficiency and hygiene. One solution was the mass grave, a stark contrast to traditional funeral rites that involved individual coffins and elaborate ceremonies. But as the Black Death persisted, the pragmatic need for rapid disposal led to the creation of mass graves, where bodies were stacked layer upon layer. The shift in burial practices also reflected a newfound awareness of hygiene and disease transmission. Historians believe that this shift was driven by a growing understanding that close contact with the dead could spread disease. The mass graves allowed for quick and efficient burial, minimizing the risk to those handling the corpses. Despite their grim nature, these mass graves stand as testaments to the resilience and adaptability of medieval societies during a time of unimaginable loss. They remind us that even in the face of catastrophe, communities can find ways to adapt and survive. The layout of these graves is not arbitrary, but reveals patterns that speak volumes about societal responses to catastrophe. The communal nature of these mass graves suggests a collective attempt to maintain order amid chaos, preserving a sense of community even in death. This symbolism is particularly striking given that the Black Death disrupted traditional burial rites and communal mourning practices. The careful placement of bodies in these mass graves could also be seen as an effort to create a final resting place that honors the deceased and offers solace to the living. These arrangements offer insights into cultural coping mechanisms during times of unimaginable loss, revealing how communities sought to preserve their identity even in the face of devastating upheaval. The Black Death, sweeping across Europe in the mid-14th century, was not only a time of immense loss, but also one of desperate attempts at containment. Public health measures were taken, though rudimentary by today's standards, to stem the tide of this invisible foe. Isolation practices became a necessity as communities sought to protect themselves from further devastation. Villages and towns implemented strict quarantine protocols, isolating infected individuals in makeshift infirmaries or even within their own homes. This was a desperate attempt to halt the spread of the disease. Public gatherings were heavily regulated and in some cases outright banned. Funerals, once communal events that celebrated a life's journey, became private affairs, attended by only the closest family members. Hygiene practices were also elevated to new levels of importance. Personal and communal cleanliness became paramount as people began to realize that the disease might be transmitted through contact with infected individuals or their belongings. The discovery of mass graves and the shift in burial practices provide a glimpse into these desperate times, but they also reveal that societal reactions were not merely reactive, but preventive as well. These public health measures may have been crude by modern standards, but they underscore the resilience and adaptability of medieval communities facing unimaginable adversity. This understanding not only sheds light on the practical steps taken during the pandemic, but also on the psychological state of a society grappling with unfathomable loss and uncertainty. These insights are crucial for comprehending the full scope of how medieval communities coped with such a catastrophic event, revealing not only their desperation, but also their determination to survive and adapt. Perhaps most poignantly, these measures showcase the enduring human impulse to protect and preserve life, even in the face of overwhelming odds. In the dark recesses of medieval Europe, mass graves became a grim necessity during the Black Death. When traditional burial methods could not keep up with the deluge of corpses, these collective pits offered a desperate measure to contain the dead. Throughout history, mass graves have been shrouded in superstition and folklore. The idea that the dead could influence the living ran deep in medieval society. Common beliefs held that those who died from contagious diseases like the plague carried powerful curses. Villagers feared that the spirits of these victims might rise again, spreading death and misfortune. In the midst of the Black Death, religious leaders found themselves at the forefront of handling mass burials and providing spiritual guidance to stricken communities. As plague victims multiplied, traditional funerary practices faltered under the sheer weight of the dead. Clergymen stepped in to lead makeshift ceremonies and offer words of solace amidst the chaos. In some towns, priests organized collective graves, laying out bodies side by side in open fields, praying over them as one. These hurried burials were often marked only by simple wooden crosses or mounds of earth, stark contrasts to the grand tombstones of pre-plague times. Yet amidst this grim efficiency, clergy offered crucial spiritual comfort. They held that these souls were still deserving of divine mercy and prayer, countering the prevailing fear of contagious curses. This spiritual support was pivotal in helping communities cope with the unimaginable losses and maintain some semblance of normalcy amidst the devastation. The role of clergy in managing these mass burials revealed not just their practical necessity, but also their profound moral and spiritual significance in shaping medieval responses to the Black Death. As societies grappled with the catastrophic toll of the plague, it was the steadfast presence and guidance of religious leaders that offered a beacon of hope in those darkest hours. One stark reality was the sheer number of corpses that needed to be disposed of. Mass graves became a necessity as individual burials were no longer feasible in many places. This shift raised questions about how to balance care for the living with respect for the dead. Medieval communities had to make tough decisions about resource allocation. Precious resources like wood and labor were diverted from traditional burial practices to address the immediate crisis, leading to a sense of disconnect between societal values and practical necessities. Some towns and cities implemented strict measures to maintain social order amidst the chaos. For example, in certain places, it became mandatory for families to report deaths to local authorities within a specific time frame. This ensured that corpses were collected and disposed of promptly, preventing further spread of the disease. However, it also meant that families had to navigate the emotional burden of sudden loss without the support they might have otherwise expected. For instance, some priests performed mass burials while reciting prayers and scriptures to honor those who had passed away. This provided a sense of closure and dignity that was otherwise lacking in such trying times. Understanding these ethical dilemmas offers a deeper insight into how medieval societies navigated the complexities of the Black Death, highlighting both their strengths and weaknesses in the face of such an unprecedented crisis. Medieval medical interventions during the Black Death often relied on ancient theories and practices that failed to stem the tide of the disease. This desperation for a cure may have influenced hurried burials and the creation of mass graves. Medieval physicians often resorted to bloodletting, believing it could help restore this balance. However, this practice may have inadvertently exacerbated the spread of the disease. The use of herbal treatments was also common, with specific plants thought to hold curative properties. Unfortunately, these remedies often proved ineffective against the plague's rapid progression. The shift from traditional individual burials to mass graves reflects the sheer volume of bodies that needed to be disposed of quickly, highlighting the desperation and chaos caused by the Black Death. As medical interventions failed to stop the plague, the need for expedient burial methods became increasingly pressing, contributing to the creation of these mass grave sites. Archaeological findings suggest that some victims were interred in a hurry, with little ceremony or personal belongings, indicating the urgency and scale of the crisis. The discovery of mass graves provides insight into not only the extent of the plague, but also the desperation and disruption it caused in medieval society's burial practices. This shift in burial methods underscores the profound impact the Black Death had on medieval communities, challenging their ability to maintain traditional funeral rites and forcing them to adopt more pragmatic solutions. The creation of mass graves serves as a somber reminder of the desperate measures taken during this unprecedented crisis, revealing both the strengths and vulnerabilities of medieval societies in their struggle against the Black Death. The Black Death's impact on urban planning is evident in the drastic changes cities underwent during and after this devastating epidemic. As plague-ridden bodies piled up, traditional funerary practices became untenable. Cities had to adopt new burial methods quickly to prevent further spread of the disease. One of these innovations was the development of plague pits within city limits. These mass graves were dug quickly and filled rapidly with layers of corpses, creating a somber reminder of the desperate measures taken during this unprecedented crisis. In some cases, New architectural features were designed specifically to prevent future outbreaks. These changes in city planning not only influenced burial locations, but also altered how communities managed pandemics and cared for their dead. Revealing both the strengths and vulnerabilities of medieval societies in their struggle against the Black Death, these urban adaptations offer valuable insights into how cities can plan for future health crises. In some cases, memorial structures were built above or near mass graves, providing a tangible focal point for mourning and remembrance. The construction of these structures signified not only the scale of loss, but also the collective resolve to honor the deceased. These spaces often became sites for community rituals and commemorations. Personal memorials or markers within mass graves are rare, reflecting the urgency of dealing with a large number of corpses quickly rather than individualized commemorations. However, evidence from the Nuremberg site reveals that in the rush to bury the deceased, some bodies were laid out in individual graves, occasionally with multiple members of one family buried together. This shift from standard funerary rituals highlights the emotional and practical challenges faced by medieval communities during the Black Death. The memorialization of mass graves offers unique insights into how medieval societies coped with extraordinary loss, influencing burial practices and societal healing. These adaptations illustrate the resilience of communities in the face of adversity and provide valuable lessons for how societies can plan for future health crises. During the Black Death, one of the most striking changes in medieval society was reflected in its art and symbolism. Artistic depictions of plague victims became more common as a means to document the devastating effects of the disease. Funerary art during this period also underwent significant shifts, with new symbolism emerging to represent the societal changes brought about by the plague. One notable change was the increased use of death symbols in burial rituals, such as the memento mori. The memento mori served as a reminder of the fragility of life and the inevitability of death, reflecting the widespread fear and uncertainty caused by the plague. Artworks directly inspired by mass graves or experiences with the plague became more prevalent as a way to capture and process the traumatic events of this period. For example, the iconography of the Dance of Death became popular during the Black Death and depicted skeletons leading people from all walks of life to their inevitable end. This shift in symbolism demonstrates how artistic responses to the plague reflected societal attitudes towards death and burial practices during this period. As the Black Death swept through medieval Europe, it left behind more than just empty villages and terrified survivors. Mass graves, burial sites holding hundreds of plague victims, have offered historians a unique window into how this devastating pandemic altered the demographic landscape. Among these insights is a shift in age distribution among the victims. The discovery of mass graves has revealed that children and young adults were disproportionately affected by the plague. This stark contrast to modern demographic patterns underscores how the Black Death decimated entire generations, leaving many families and communities devastated. Additionally, mass grave findings have highlighted significant gender disparities in mortality rates during the plague. While the overall death toll was immense, men often fared worse than women. Several factors might explain this discrepancy: men's greater exposure to trade routes and military campaigns, both of which facilitated the spread of the plague, as well as potential differences in immune system responses. Moreover, urban areas were particularly hard hit compared to rural regions. The dense population and poor sanitation conditions of medieval cities created ideal environments for the rapid spread of disease. Through these demographic changes, we gain profound insights into the societal impact of the Black Death. The reshaping of population structures reflected the deep trauma and upheaval wrought by this catastrophic pandemic. Yet amidst the devastation, new societal roles emerged and economic redistributions occurred, demonstrating humanity's resilience even in the face of such unprecedented adversity. Understanding these demographic shifts helps us appreciate how pandemics not only claim lives, but also leave indelible marks on the fabric of society. As we continue to uncover more about this dark chapter in human history, it serves as a reminder of both our fragility and our capacity for endurance. As archaeologists uncover these grim testaments to history, they gain insight into the daily lives and personal beliefs of those who perished. This is artifact analysis, a window into the past that helps us understand not just how people died, but also how they lived. These stains serve as a reminder that even in the midst of catastrophe, daily life continued. People worked, traded goods, and faced the same environmental challenges they always had. The presence of personal artifacts, trinkets, coins, or even small tokens of faith offers a glimpse into their personal beliefs. These were not mere possessions, but symbols of hope and resilience. One could imagine a mother clutching a small pendant as she lay in her final resting place, finding comfort in the familiarity of an object that represented her family's strength and love. The mass graves also reveal a shift in burial practices. Normally, bodies would be laid out individually with care, but the sheer volume of corpses overwhelmed traditional methods. Multiple bodies were placed together, a stark departure from the usual customs. This was not just an efficient solution, but also a testament to the collective trauma and desperation of those times. They teach us about our ancestors' resilience in the face of unimaginable adversity and their enduring hope amidst despair. Skeletal analysis reveals common signs of nutritional deficiencies among the interred. The bones often show indications of scurvy or rickets, suggesting that many were malnourished long before the Black Death struck. These findings underscore the precarious state of medieval health and nutrition, even before the plague's onset. It was a time of subsistence living for many, with nutritional deficits leaving populations vulnerable to disease. Further analysis reveals comorbidities, such as tuberculosis or dental infections. These conditions indicate that many were already struggling with chronic illnesses before they fell victim to the plague. The skeletal evidence paints a grim picture of medieval life, where even those who did not die from the Black Death often faced significant health challenges. As the plague swept through Europe, communities faced an unprecedented challenge: how to handle a massive influx of corpses. In the French town of Poilly-le-Fort, archaeologists discovered a mass grave containing over 50 individuals, many with no discernible burial goods. This contrasts sharply with standard medieval practices where the deceased were often buried with personal belongings to aid them in the afterlife. The absence of these goods suggests a hasty disposal, driven by fear and necessity rather than traditional observances. In England, records indicate that bodies were sometimes buried 2 or 3 deep to accommodate the overwhelming numbers. This pragmatic approach highlights the desperation faced by communities under siege from the relentless plague. Further north in Denmark, archaeologists unearthed a mass grave containing more than 150 individuals, all showing signs of hastily executed burials. These findings offer a poignant glimpse into how medieval societies adapted their mortuary rituals under extreme duress. The Black Death not only ravaged lives, but also forced significant changes in societal behaviors and religious observances. As these discoveries reveal, the plague left an indelible mark not only on the landscape of death, but also on the living who were forced to confront it. The communal efforts to dig these graves and transport bodies to the designated burial sites showcase the resilience and unity among medieval communities. Historical records recount how residents worked together to dig large pits and transport bodies to these makeshift burial sites. These collective efforts underscore the adaptability of medieval communities faced with an unprecedented crisis. In London, where plague victims numbered in the thousands, there are accounts of neighbors helping each other transport bodies to communal burial grounds. Such examples illustrate that even amidst the terror and chaos of the Black Death, there was a deep sense of communal responsibility and cooperation. This resilience and unity among medieval communities are a testament to the human spirit's ability to rise above adversity. As the Black Death ravaged Europe, one of its most devastating impacts was visible in the sheer number of corpses that overwhelmed traditional burial practices. Mass graves became a grim necessity, reflecting the desperate measures communities took to deal with the overwhelming loss of life. Skeletons excavated from these mass graves often exhibit characteristic signs of infection, including swollen lymph nodes and abscesses in various parts of the body. These findings not only confirm the widespread presence of Yersinia pestis, but also offer clues about the progression and severity of the disease during the Black Death. By studying the specific patterns of infection and their locations on the skeleton, researchers can reconstruct how the plague affected different parts of the body. For example, inflamed lymph nodes in the groin area indicate that the disease may have entered the body through bites from infected fleas. These skeletal remains offer a chilling testament to the medical realities faced by medieval communities during this horrific period. By investigating these sites, we gain a deeper appreciation for the medical challenges that plagued medieval societies and the extent to which they were forced to adapt their burial practices in response. Skeletal pathology thus provides crucial evidence, shedding light on the medical history of the Black Death and enriching our understanding of its devastating impact on medieval Europe. Historical documents and archaeological evidence reveal that cities like Florence and Venice implemented stringent quarantine practices to try and contain the spread of the disease. In Florence, for example, strict isolation rules were enforced upon infected individuals and their families. These measures aimed to limit the contagion's reach by physically separating the sick from the rest of the population. In Venice, similar strategies were employed. The city was renowned for its advanced public health measures, even before the Black Death. During this time, ships arriving from infected ports were required to anchor outside of a lagoon for 40 days, a period known as quarantina in Italian. This isolation period, lasting 40 days, was believed to be sufficient time to determine if the crew or cargo carried any signs of infection. If no one fell ill during this quarantine, the ship was allowed to enter the city. Beyond these isolation strategies, communities also adopted enhanced hygiene measures. Public baths and communal washing areas were frequently cleaned and disinfected. Based on this belief, they recommended the burning of aromatic herbs and resins to purify the air. These practices were not only used in homes, but also in public spaces such as markets and churches. This stark image underscores the magnitude of the tragedy and the desperate measures taken by medieval communities in their attempt to cope with an unfathomable catastrophe. Understanding these strategies offers a deeper insight into how medieval societies attempted to manage the Black Death, highlighting both their resilience and the limitations of their medical knowledge. As we delve further into the story of the Black Death, we begin to see that while some practices were effective in slowing the spread, others were based on misunderstandings about the nature of disease. One particularly intriguing aspect of these mass graves is the presence of artifacts and grave orientations that hint at pre-Christian, pagan influences. For instance, some mass graves contain items such as amulets or small sculptures, which were common in ancient pagan burial practices. Additionally, the orientation of some graves suggests that they may have been aligned with celestial bodies, a practice reminiscent of ancient pagan rites. Historical texts from the period also mention a blend of Christian and pagan funeral rites during the Black Death. These blended practices indicate that even in the face of widespread societal changes, traditional cultural beliefs and rituals persisted. The resilience of these communal beliefs and rites provides a fascinating glimpse into the human response to catastrophe, how cultural practices can endure amidst profound upheaval. As we delve deeper, it becomes clear that these mass graves are not merely sites of tragedy, but also testaments to the enduring power of shared rituals and beliefs. Through these burial practices, we see a glimpse of medieval Europe's rich tapestry of traditions, a world where ancient rites coexisted with newer faiths. These insights into medieval burial practices offer a window into the complex cultural landscape of the era, illuminating both continuity and change in the face of crisis. Soil analysis has become a crucial tool in unraveling the mysteries of medieval mass graves. By examining the earth around these burial sites, scientists can glean vital information about the living conditions and societal responses during the Black Death. One key method is isotopic composition analysis, which helps determine the diet and health of the deceased. During times of crisis like the Black Death, diets could have shifted dramatically. Elemental composition analysis can reveal the presence of toxins or contaminants in the soil, indicating potential environmental stressors during this period. These analyses suggest that rapid burials were a necessity rather than a deviation from typical funerary practices. The urgency of interment implies a societal stress level that was unprecedented. Soil samples from these graves also hint at the haste with which bodies were laid to rest. The lack of traditional rituals is evident in the composition of the earth around them. These insights into environmental context and urgency reflect a society under immense pressure, scrambling to cope with an overwhelming catastrophe. Soil analysis not only sheds light on the practical aspects of burial during the Black Death, but also underscores the profound social and cultural shifts that accompanied this tragic event. And as we continue to unearth these historical secrets, we gain a deeper appreciation for the lessons of the past and their enduring relevance. Mass graves became a grim necessity to accommodate the sheer volume of corpses. These burial spaces reveal insights into how medieval societies adapted to the crisis. In cities like Nuremberg and London, where traditional cemeteries quickly overflowed, makeshift pits became common. These hastily dug graves were often located in fields or open spaces near churches. The use of these improvised burial sites suggests a desperate measure to keep up with the relentless death toll. It also indicates a practical shift in community organization. Churchyards, typically reserved for the privileged and the wealthy, sometimes served as mass burial grounds during this time of crisis. This indicates a shift in religious practices, with communal graves replacing individual rituals. The church, which once symbolized order and continuity, now became a stark reminder of the pandemic's devastating reach. Archaeological evidence shows that bodies were often laid out in layers within these graves, reflecting a grim pragmatism amidst the overwhelming loss of life. The practice of layering corpses speaks to the sheer volume of deaths that outstripped traditional burial methods. In more rural areas, where populations were smaller but no less affected by the plague, mass graves were dug in fields or common spaces. These sites were often marked with simple crosses or piles of stones. These rural burial spaces suggest a collective effort to honor the dead despite the chaotic circumstances, preserving some semblance of dignity and remembrance. Through these burial practices, medieval communities demonstrated a resilient spirit, adapting their spaces and rituals to accommodate the catastrophic loss of life. As we continue to unearth these historical secrets, we gain a deeper understanding of how medieval societies responded to the Black Death with practicality and resilience amidst unprecedented crisis. Their adaptation of burial spaces offers a poignant window into the profound impact the Black Death had on daily life and community structures,